Hello, this is the final scores video of Dartball Season 2. We've had all the scores submitted, so can finally go through and announce the totals. I thought the best way to do it would be to go through each section at a time, announcing in reverse order the amount of points people have got, so that you can get an impression within each area who did the best, and then that way the actual total can almost be a surprise at the end. So obviously we'll start with the thing that everyone knows the most about, and that is their game points. Now this makes up to 50% of your total points, because each you take the game points you had at the end, so each win is 3 points, each draw is 1 point, and you multiply it by 6. So this means that if you win all 5 of your games for 15 points, you multiply that by 6, and that gives you 90. Okay, so you've got between 0 and 90 points. So if we start at the bottom, unfortunately Ben didn't manage to score any game points, so he is at the bottom of the game point table with 0. Just above him is Shaun with 18 game points. Then it's quite a jump up to Alec and Matt, who are drawn with 54 game points each. Above that, you've got Dan with 60 game points and Jack with 78. So you can see, at the end of the day, while there are, up to 50% of your points can come from games, up to 50% from the rest, but if you're going to score 78 game points, it's a massive help, and it's very hard to come back from scoring 0. But I think that's right. I mean, we can always change how the balances of points work in the future if people aren't happy, but I think 50% is an accurate representation of the kind of tournament we're trying to do. But there we go. So that means that the league award, as in the player who played the best, goes to Jack, because he came out top of the game's point table. Next up are the betting points. Now this is a combination of betting on the match results and your dream team, where every correct prediction for a game result earns you 2 points, an incorrect one earns you 0 points. Simple. And then the dream team, which is the most elaborate part and isn't worth explaining here again, quite simply, it doesn't matter how many points your dream team scores, it's simply, if you're the best dream team, you get 10 points, second best 8, 6, 4, 2, 0. So I combine those two together, there's no multiplication required, and that can give you a maximum of 30 points. So at the bottom of the betting table was Shaun with 10 points. Then we do a bit of a jump with Ben and Jack with 16 points. Jump again to Matt and Alec with 18. And Dan came out on the top with 20, which means Dan wins our Insight Award, the betting award. This was a huge surprise, since initially Dan missed an entire round of betting, but his dream team topped the table, and that gave him a massive 10 to compensate for his quite weak betting points of 10. So big surprise result there. If people are interested, I'll do a subsequent video on the dream teams. But there we go. The next is the fluff. Now this is very difficult, because this is by far and away the most subjective of the areas that I have to deal with. I mean, obviously sportsmanship is subjective, but I don't have to submit that. Whereas this, I have to look through the teams and assign between 0 and 30 points. And there's some rough guidelines, like having a bio, having an image, updating your players, things like that. So, and there's a maximum of 30 points. I've decided not to be quite so scientific with it this time, and instead just kind of almost mark it, engaging the teacher in me. So at the bottom of the fluff is Dan with 5 points, and I feel like I want to explain, briefly why people have got what they've got. Dan only wrote a team bio; he didn't have an image or anything along those lines, so 5 points. Above him is Ben with 11. Ben had a team bio. He also had a theme, like behind the naming convention, that was clearly apparent. But some of them, like the more detailed things that could have been, he had a picture as well, an image, which is always important, because I think that really increases the appearance of the pitch while you're playing, which overall enhances the game experience. But Ben didn't go beyond that, and that's fine, and that's worth 11 points. Next, in the fluff tables, above Ben, we jumped from 11 points to the Ben to 22 points for Alec. Alec's side had Team Bio, Team Photo, a very good naming convention, and bios that fixed bios for every player. And the difference, in my mind, between a fixed bio and a changing bio is at the start of the game every player has a description written about them, and these were all very funny and tied in with his players' names, and it elicited genuine laughter on my part, but they didn't change with time, and that's fine, and that's worth 22 points. Next on the mighty... oh dear. This is the problem with having just a small computer screen. Next, above Alec with 22 are Matt and Shaun with 25 each. Matt with his ogres, he team bio, team picture, a loose team naming convention, but he invented his own, because the whole idea was that it was a beauty pageant. He invented his own means to score the beauty pageant, so he could actually work out which ogre had won. And this required not only a lot of effort, but it was quite funny on Matt's part. He had key players with key bios, which is fine, and he updated them as he went. And I always think that's really nice because it shows a bit of history. And again, you know, the comic Matt clearly has a flair for ogre language because it was all very humorous and enjoyable stuff. And so that was worth 25 points to Matt. Shaun also scored 25 points. He had image, short bio, and all his players had initial bios, mostly puns around their nature. A strong naming convention, but Shaun, I mean, a lot of points came for Shaun because of the work he put in doing the individual player portraits. These were all different on his team, and came from the actual actresses themselves, which always makes for a visually enjoyable game to watch. So, that was Shaun really thinking beyond what I would have asked somebody to do, and that was worth 25 points. And then at the top of the fluff table is Jack with 27. Jack's Shallow Grave Dwellers have a team bio picture, an enormous and very detailed team bio, which is excellent. And all of his players, there's a strong naming convention. There are fixed bios for every player, and there are humorous things. And so ultimately, his team bio though tells a story, and you can really see the tournament evolving through that tale. And I really enjoy that because that's like a piece of history. Jack also changed his players' photos from the standard pictures to ones he'd chosen himself. And that gave that side just like a little bit more flair. So that meant Jack topped out the table with 27, which gets Jack the Storyteller award. And now we come to sports. Sports was fairly close. Obviously, some people explain why they gave certain sports scores, others don't. That's fine. I've never asked people to do it. It's always nice when they do. And I compile them all together. You can submit 3 if you had a great gaming experience, 1 if it was okay, or nothing if you felt like it was a negative experience. So at the bottom of the sportsmanship table was Jack with 12. Above him was Alec with 20. Then it's Matt and Shaun with 22 apiece. And then Dan and Ben topped out the sportsmanship table on 26 points each. The method that I used, the tie-breaking sports, wasn't usable here. So Ben and Dan share the top sports award. Out of the possible total of 30, they scored 26 points, which is pretty impressive. Now, we take these 4 elements and combine them together for your final scores. So, without further ado, in 6th place was Ben with 53 points. In 5th place was Shaun with 75 points. In 4th place was Dan with 111. In 3rd place was Alec with 114. In 2nd place was Matt with 119, which means Jack is Season 2's winner with 133 points. Jack had a huge help from his game gained points, of course, and made a killing in the fluff as well. So combined those two elements really well together, and topped it out on 133, a magnificent score. So there we go. That's Dart Bowl Season 2. I've really enjoyed managing this one. I tried to keep the pitch count a bit lower. I didn't bother doing as many videos, and I feel like people have probably been happy with that. Ultimately, thank you to the players. I mean, everyone has played really quickly when they can, and I realise that people have difficult schedules. People always submit their sportsmanship scores. The betting was on time, and just the general attitude of the tournament has been great. I really do enjoy running them, because it is difficult for me with my time schedule and time difference out here. So it's really nice to have that link back home to you guys through this tournament. So if people are interested in doing Season 3, I'll draw the names when I'm certain that you guys want to do it. All the best, and hopefully a third season, so those Tier 3 teams and Tier 2 teams can hopefully get a little bit better, and Tier 1 can reap what they sow. Alright, thanks a lot, bye, and congratulations, Jack.